The snow fell like judgment on Bitter Creek, Wyoming. Eliza Hartwell's knees struck frozen mud outside Thornton's general store, her arms wrapped around three shivering children who hadn't eaten in 2 days. The cold bit through her threadbare coat, but that pain was nothing compared to the hollow ache in her chest. The knowledge that she had failed them, failed to keep them fed, failed to keep them safe, failed to be the mother Samuel would have wanted her to be. Mama, Benjamin's voice cracked, 12 years old and already trying to shoulder a man's burden. Maybe we should go home. Home. The word tasted like ash. Home was a cabin with empty shelves and a fireplace they couldn't afford to feed. Home was where Samuel had died 5 months ago, his neck broken when that damned horse threw him, leaving her alone with three children in debts she couldn't even pronounce, let alone pay. Through the store window, Margaret Thornton laughed with the banker's wife, Mrs. Blackwood, their hands wrapped around steaming cups of coffee while outside, Eliza's children shook with cold and hunger. The warm light spilling from the store felt like mockery, a reminder of everything Eliza had lost, everything she could no longer provide. Please. Her voice came out thin, desperate. She hated the sound of it, hated what she'd become. Just some flour, maybe beans. I can work it off. I can clean, mend, anything. Margaret's face appeared in the doorway, hard as winter stone. Mrs. Hartwell, I told you yesterday, no more credit. Your husband's debts are settled, but you've got nothing left. Nothing. The word hung in the December air like a death sentence. My children haven't eaten. Not my problem. Margaret's voice carried across the street, drawing stares. I'm not running a charity for women who can't manage their own affairs. Heat flooded Eliza's face despite the cold. She felt every eye on the street turned toward her, felt the weight of their judgment, their complete absence of mercy. These people had been her neighbors once, had shared meals with her family, had called Samuel friend. Now they watched her beg like she was street theater. Benjamin stepped forward, his thin shoulders squared in a heartbreaking attempt at dignity. Please, ma'am, my sisters are hungry. We'll do anything. I can chop wood, haul water. Boy, step back. Margaret's face hardened further. Your mama should have thought about feeding you before she spent every cent your daddy left on God knows what. Lies. All lies. Samuel had left them nothing but debt. The horse, the cabin, the land, all mortgaged to Victor Blackwood's bank at rates that made Eliza's head spin. She'd sold Samuel's saddle, his guns, her mother's silver, everything. And still it wasn't enough. Still the bank wanted more. There was no money, Eliza's voice shook. Samuel died owing more than we had. I'm trying. I'm doing everything I can. But nothing. Mrs. Blackwood appeared beside Margaret, wrapped in furs that cost more than Eliza's entire cabin. Her smile was all teeth and no warmth. Honestly, Mrs. Hartwell, some people simply aren't meant to survive out here. Perhaps you should consider going back east, finding family, leaving this territory to those of us who can actually manage. Clara made a small sound, not quite a sob. Grace whimpered against Eliza's chest, her small body trembling. I don't have family back east. The admission felt like defeat. This is our home. Samuel built. Samuel is dead. Margaret said it flat, cold, like stating the weather. And you're dragging these poor children down with you out of sheer stubbornness. Benjamin's hands clenched into fists. Eliza saw the rage building in him, the same fire that had burned in his father, and grabbed his arm before he could do something foolish. Don't! But the boy pulled away, tears cutting tracks through the dirt on his face. They're lying, Mama. You didn't spend anything. You sold everything, everything. And they know it. The whole town knows Pa died with nothing. And they're just being... A rock hit the snow at Benjamin's feet. Eliza's head snapped up. A boy, maybe 14, standing across the street with a handful of stones and a mean smile. The blacksmith's son. She couldn't remember his name through the haze of fear and humiliation. Beggar boy. His voice carried cruel delight. You and your beggar mama should leave town. Nobody wants you here. Another rock. This one hit closer. Grace started crying in earnest now, thin, exhausted sobs that tore at Eliza's heart. Stop it. Eliza moved in front of her children, her body an inadequate shield. He's just a child. We're all just pathetic. Someone else, a woman Eliza didn't recognize. Absolutely pathetic, making those poor children stand in the cold while you beg. Have you no shame? Laughter rippled through the gathering crowd. More people stopping to watch. Some she knew, some strangers, all of them judging, all of them finding her wanting. Eliza felt her legs give out. Not a choice, not a decision. Her body simply stopped obeying, exhausted beyond endurance, and suddenly she was on the ground again. Frozen mud soaking through her skirt, Grace clutched against her chest and Benjamin and Clara grabbing at her arms, trying to pull her up, their small hands desperate and terrified. "Mama, please." Benjamin's voice cracked completely. "Mama, get up. Please get up." Someone laughed again. The sound cut through Eliza like a knife. She couldn't see who, couldn't see anything except the gray sky and her children's frightened faces and the absolute certainty that this was it. This was how they died. Not quick, not merciful. Slow and cold and starving in the street while the town watched and did nothing. Then a shadow fell across them. Eliza looked up. A man stood there, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a long coat and a hat pulled low. She couldn't see his face clearly through her tears, just the hard line of his jaw and something in his eyes that made her breath catch. Not pity, something else. Something that felt like controlled rage. He didn't speak, just stood there, a wall between her family and the watching crowd, his presence suddenly the only thing that mattered in the world. "Move along, stranger." Margaret's voice lost some of its confidence. "This doesn't concern you." The man turned his head slowly. When he spoke, his voice was rough, Western, the kind of voice that didn't make threats it couldn't back up. "Ma'am, I'm going to give you a chance to rethink that statement. I said, move along." Margaret's face reddened. "This is my store, my property. If I want this woman and her brats removed, you'll do it yourself." The stranger's hand moved to his hip, not drawing, just resting. But the message was clear as gospel. "Because if you're asking me to move, right, ma'am, we're going to have a problem." Silence fell like a curtain. Complete. Absolute. Eliza could hear her own heartbeat, could hear Grace's quiet sobs, could hear Benjamin's sharp intake of breath beside her. The stranger took a step forward, his boots crunching in the snow. "Anyone else want to comment? Anyone else want to share their thoughts on this woman and her children?" No one spoke. The crowd began to disperse, people suddenly finding reasons to be elsewhere, their courage evaporating in the face of a man who looked like he'd seen harder things than a Wyoming winter and survived them all. The stranger turned back to Eliza. For the first time, she saw his face clearly. Maybe 30, maybe older. Hard years lived in hard country, written in the lines around his eyes, in the scar on his left cheek. But his eyes were careful, like he was trying very hard not to scare her children more than they already were. He crouched down, putting himself at her level. "Can you stand?" Eliza tried. Failed, tried again. Benjamin and Clara pushed from behind and the stranger caught her arm, his grip gentle in a way that almost broke her completely, and helped her up. "Thank you." The words felt inadequate. "Thank you, but you shouldn't have. How long since they ate?" He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at Grace, at Clara, at Benjamin, who stood trembling with cold and rage and something that might have been hope. The stranger's jaw tightened as he took in their hollow cheeks, their too thin arms, the desperate hunger in their eyes. 2 days. The admission burned. Maybe 3. I lose track. Something shifted in the stranger's expression. A flash of pain, quickly buried. He turned to Margaret Thornton, who still stood frozen in her doorway. "Ma'am, I need supplies. Flour, salt, beans, bacon, coffee, and I need them now." We're closed." "Ma'am," the stranger's voice dropped. "That wasn't a request." Margaret hesitated, then disappeared inside. Eliza tried to speak, tried to say something that would make sense of what was happening, but the words wouldn't come. This man, this stranger, he didn't know them. Had no reason to help, no reason to put himself between her family and the town's cruelty. "I can't pay you," she forced the words out. "I don't have money. I don't have anything." "Didn't ask you to pay." He was watching the crowd now, the few stragglers who remained, making sure they understood his protection extended as far as it needed to. Asked you to stand up and keep these children warm until the supplies come out. But why? The question burst free. You don't know us. Don't know me. Why would you? Because it's right. He said it like there was no other option. No other choice, because watching a woman and her children starve while people laugh is about the worst thing I can imagine. And because I've been hungry before, ma'am, I know what it looks like. Margaret returned with packages, dropped them at the stranger's feet without meeting his eyes. He gathered them up, turned back to Eliza. Where's your cabin? 2 miles east. But sir, I can't accept. You can and you will. He handed the packages to Benjamin. Boy, can you carry these? Benjamin nodded, struck dumb by the weight of actual food in his arms, more than they'd seen in weeks. Good, you lead the way. I'll follow with my horse. Sir, please. Eliza was shaking now, from cold, from hunger, from shock. At least tell me your name. Tell me who. Nate. He tipped his hat. Nathaniel Cross, but Nate's fine. Mr. Cross, her voice steadied slightly. I'm Eliza, Eliza Hartwell. These are my children. Benjamin, Clara, Grace. He nodded to each of them in turn, his eyes lingering on Grace's tear-stained face. Ma'am, let's get you home before your children freeze. The walk took forever. 2 miles felt like 20. Grace fell asleep against Eliza's shoulder, her small body finally relaxing now that warmth and food were promised. Clara stumbled twice, exhaustion catching up with adrenaline. Benjamin carried the packages like they were made of gold, his face set in that too-adult expression that made Eliza's heart hurt. Nate walked beside them, leading a rangy paint horse that looked as worn as its rider. He didn't speak much, just kept pace, his presence a steady comfort in the dying light. When the cabin came into view, small, shabby, missing shingles on the roof, Eliza felt shame wash over her again. It's not much. It's home. Nate said it simple, certain. That's enough. Inside, the temperature wasn't much better than outside. The fire had died hours ago, no wood left to feed it. The cabin was just 4 walls and emptiness, a monument to everything Eliza had lost. Nate took one look around and nodded like he'd expected exactly this. You got an axe? Behind the cabin, but Mr. Cross, Nate. He was already moving toward the door. And you've done enough, more than enough. You don't need to. Ma'am, when's the last time you ate? Eliza opened her mouth, closed it, couldn't remember. That's what I thought. He paused at the threshold. Benjamin, you come help me. Clara, you help your mama get that stove going. Grace, you sit right there and don't move. And just like that, her children had orders, structure, something to do besides be scared and hungry. Benjamin followed Nate outside without question. Clara began gathering kindling from the small pile by the stove. Grace curled up in the rocking chair, watching everything with wide eyes. Eliza stood in the middle of her cold cabin and felt tears start. Hot, angry, grateful, terrified. Everything at once, overwhelming her completely. Mama. Clara's small hand slipped into hers. Is he going to stay? I don't know, sweetheart. I hope he does. The girl's voice was so quiet, so careful. I hope he stays forever. Outside, the sound of an axe biting wood. Steady, rhythmic. The sound of someone who knew what he was doing, who'd done this 1,000 times before. Eliza moved to the window, watched Nate swing the axe while Benjamin stacked split wood. The man moving with easy efficiency, no wasted motion. Benjamin watched him like he was memorizing every movement. Like he was trying to learn how to be a man from someone who understood what that meant. 20 minutes later, they came back inside, arms loaded with firewood. Nate had Benjamin start the fire while he unpacked the supplies Margaret had grudgingly provided. He moved through her kitchen like he belonged there, finding the cookpot without asking, beginning to prepare food with the calm competence of someone used to taking care of himself. You don't need to, Eliza found her voice. I can cook. I'm not helpless. I know you can, ma'am. He didn't look up from the pot. I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying you don't have to. Not tonight. Tonight you rest. Let someone else carry the weight for a few hours. The tears came then, no stopping them. Eliza sank into a chair and cried while this stranger, this man named Nate Cross, cooked beans and bacon and made coffee that smelled like heaven. Benjamin sat beside her, put his thin arm around her shoulders. It's okay, Mama. It's going to be okay. I'm sorry. She couldn't stop saying it. I'm so sorry. I should have done better. Should have protected you better. Should have... Mama, stop. Clara knelt at her feet. You did everything. Everything. This isn't your fault. Your daughter's right. Nate spoke without turning from the stove. I heard what happened out there, what they said. And ma'am, none of that was true. None of it. You don't know that. Eliza wiped her eyes. You don't know me. Don't know what I know a woman who sold everything she had trying to keep her children fed. His voice was quiet, certain. I know a woman who stood in the street and begged because her pride mattered less than her children's lives. I know a woman who's been carrying weight that would break most men, and she's still standing, still fighting. That's what I know, Mrs. Hartwell, and that's enough. The words hit harder than the rocks had, harder than Margaret's cruelty, harder than anything because someone saw her, really saw her. Not the desperate widow, not the burden, not the failure, just Eliza, fighting, surviving, still standing. Food's ready. Nate ladled beans into bowls. It's not fancy, but it's hot. The children descended on their bowls like wolves. Eliza started to tell them to slow down, to mind their manners, but Nate caught her eye and shook his head. Let them eat. Hunger like that doesn't care about manners. He handed her a bowl. Simple food, just beans and bacon and hard bread. But it tasted like salvation. Eliza ate slowly, trying to make it last, trying to remember the last time her stomach felt this full. Nate ate standing up, watching them, making sure they were real, making sure this wasn't a dream that would evaporate when he blinked. When the bowls were empty, Grace climbed down from her chair and walked straight to Nate, stood there looking up at him with those big eyes. Thank you. Her voice was barely a whisper. Nate crouched down, put himself at her level again. You're welcome, little miss. Are you going to leave? The question hung in the air. Eliza held her breath. Nate glanced at her, then back at Grace. I don't know yet. Maybe, maybe not. I don't want you to leave. Grace's voice trembled. Bad things happen when people leave. Something crossed Nate's face. Pain, old and deep, quickly buried. I know, sweetheart. I know they do. Then stay. Simple as that. A 4-year-old's logic. Just stay. Nate straightened, looked at Eliza again. Ma'am, I'd like to make you a proposal. A proposal? Her heart started beating faster. I need work. You need help. Seems like we could help each other. He spoke carefully, like he'd rehearsed this. I'll fix your cabin, repair your fences, get you through winter. In return, I get a place to sleep and meals, no money, just work and food. Fair trade. Eliza stared at him. This stranger who'd appeared like an answer to prayers she'd stopped believing would be heard. This man who'd stood between her children and cruelty without asking for anything in return. Wia. The question came out raw. Really, why would you do this? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, controlled, like he was holding something back. Because 4 years ago, I made a mistake. A bad one. And a child died because of it. Not directly, but it's complicated. His eyes met hers. I can't bring that child back, ma'am. Can't fix what I broke. But I can make sure your children don't starve. Can make sure they have firewood and a solid roof. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's how I start making things right. Understanding dawned. He wasn't rescuing her, he was saving himself. 1 month, Eliza heard herself say. We try it for 1 month. If it's not working, you ride on. No questions, no hard feelings. And you sleep in the barn, not in here. Yes, ma'am. And my children call you Mr. Cross, not Nate. Not until I say different. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Yes, ma'am. Eliza extended her hand. 1 month, Mr. Cross. He took it. His palm was rough, warm, solid. 1 month, Mrs. Hartwell. Benjamin grinned. Clara clapped softly. Grace climbed back into the rocking chair and fell asleep immediately, her stomach full for the first time in days. Nate gathered his saddlebags. I'll bed down in the barn. Start on the roof in the morning. Storm's coming in a few days. Can see it in the sky. Mr. Cross, Eliza stopped him at the door. Thank you. I don't have words for what you did today. What you're doing. Just thank you. He tipped his hat. Ma'am, you don't owe me thanks. You owe me nothing. This is just two people helping each other survive. That's all. But it wasn't all. They both knew it. Something had shifted. Something had started that neither of them could name yet. Something that felt dangerous and necessary and completely inevitable. When he left, Eliza sank back into her chair and looked at her sleeping children. Full bellies, warm cabin, a stranger in the barn who'd chosen to stay. Outside, the snow began to fall again, soft and silent. But for the first time in 5 months, Eliza Hartwell wasn't afraid of winter. She was afraid of something else entirely. She was afraid of hoping. Dawn came cold and gray. Eliza woke to the sound of hammering, sat up too fast, her head spinning from yesterday's strange abundance of food. For a moment, she couldn't place the sound, couldn't remember why her cabin felt warmer than it had in weeks. Then it came back. Nate Cross, the stranger who'd stood between her children and the town's cruelty. The man who'd promised 1 month. The hammering continued, steady and purposeful, coming from the roof. Benjamin was already awake, standing at the window with his nose pressed to the glass. He's fixing the shingles, Mama. Been up there since before sunrise. He should have waited. Eliza stood, wrapping Samuel's old coat around her shoulders. It still smelled like him sometimes, when she let herself notice. It's too cold, too dangerous. He knows what he's doing. Benjamin's voice carried something new. Not quite admiration, not quite hope, something in between. Watch how he moves, Mama. He's done this before. Eliza joined him at the window. Nate was on the roof, balanced on the steep pitch like he'd been born there. He'd stripped down to his shirt despite the cold, and she could see the muscles in his back working as he pried off damaged shingles and hammered new ones in place. He's going to freeze up there. He brought his own supplies. Benjamin pointed to a stack of materials by the barn. Shingles, nails, tar. He must have bought them yesterday after everything. Used his own money. Guilt twisted in Eliza's stomach. They couldn't afford to pay him back. Couldn't afford anything beyond basic survival, and even that was uncertain. We can't afford. He didn't ask us to. Clara appeared beside them, Grace still asleep on her hip. The 9-year-old had taken to carrying her little sister everywhere, like she was afraid to let her go. That's what makes him different, Mama. He didn't ask for anything. The hammering stopped. Nate straightened, surveying his work. Then climbed down with the easy confidence of someone who'd spent years doing hard things in hard places. When he reached the ground, he looked up and caught them watching, raised one hand in a brief wave. Benjamin waved back eagerly. Clara lifted Grace's small hand and waved it for her. Eliza just stood there, frozen, feeling exposed in a way that had nothing to do with the thin walls. I should make breakfast. She turned away from the window. We have food now, real food. I should... Mama, Benjamin's hand caught her arm. Can I go help him? Please, I can hand him tools, carry things. I'm strong enough. I know I am. Eliza looked at her son, 12 years old, with his father's stubborn chin and eyes that had seen too much too soon. He'd been trying so hard to be the man of the house, failing because he was still just a boy. But having Nate here, having someone to show him, teach him, yes, the word came out before she could second-guess it. But you stay where he can see you, and if he says it's too dangerous, you come straight back inside, understood? Benjamin's face split into the first real smile she'd seen in months. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mama. Thank you. He was out the door before she could change her mind, running through the snow in boots that were too small and a coat that was too thin. Eliza watched him reach Nate, watched the man crouch down to the boy's level, listened to words she couldn't quite hear. Then Nate nodded, and Benjamin's smile grew wider, and they walked together toward the barn. He's a good man. Clara said it soft, certain. Mr. Cross, he's good. We don't know that yet. Eliza moved to the stove, grateful for something to do with her hands. We don't know anything about him. We know he stopped them from hurting us. Clara set Grace down carefully. We know he didn't have to, but he did anyway. That's enough, isn't it? Was it? Eliza didn't know anymore. 5 months ago, she'd known what was enough. Samuel's love had been enough. Their small cabin and struggling ranch had been enough. The promise of tomorrow had been enough. Then Samuel died, and the definition of enough had shifted, shrunk, became simply enough food to keep the children alive, enough firewood to keep them from freezing, enough pride to face another day of failure. Now this stranger was redefining enough again. And Eliza didn't know how to feel about it. She made oatmeal with the supplies Nate had bought. Real oatmeal, not the thin gruel she'd been stretching for weeks. Added a precious spoonful of honey. The smell alone made her stomach clench with remembered hunger. Grace woke up and stumbled to the table, rubbing her eyes. Is Mr. Cross still here? He's outside with Benjamin. Eliza set a bowl in front of her daughter. Eat slowly, sweetheart. Your stomach's not used to. But Grace was already shoveling oatmeal into her mouth, pausing only to breathe. Clara ate almost as fast, both of them silent with concentration, making up for days of deprivation. Eliza forced herself to eat too, though every bite felt like theft. This was Nate's money, Nate's charity. Even if he called it something else, even if he pretended it was fair trade, they both knew the truth. She was dependent on him now, completely, and that scared her more than the hunger had. The door opened. Benjamin and Nate stomped inside, bringing cold air and the smell of fresh-cut wood. "Mama, you should see!" Benjamin's words tumbled over themselves. "Mr. Cross is building a wood shelter, a real one with a roof and everything, so the firewood stays dry. And he's teaching me how to measure and cut. And slow down." Eliza couldn't help smiling at her son's enthusiasm. "Breathe first, talk second." Nate hung his hat by the door. "Morning, ma'am. Hope we didn't wake you with the noise." "You didn't." A lie. She'd been awake the moment the hammering started. "There's oatmeal if you're hungry." "Appreciate it." He moved to the basin, washed his hands with the efficient movements of someone used to hard work. "Roof's about half done. Should have it finished by tomorrow if the weather holds." "You don't need to," Eliza started. "Ma'am, we had an agreement." Nate dried his hands on the towel hanging by the basin. 1 month. I fix things, you feed me. I'm keeping my end of the bargain. You planning to keep yours? It wasn't accusatory, just factual, but it still made Eliza's face heat. "Of course. I just meant, then we're square." He accepted the bowl she handed him. "This smells good, Mrs. Hartwell. Thank you." They ate in silence, not uncomfortable exactly, but waited, like everyone was aware they were performing some new ritual, establishing patterns that would define the next month. Grace broke the silence. "Mr. Cross, do you have children?" "Grace," Eliza's tone was sharp, "that's not appropriate to ask." "It's all right." Nate set down his spoon. "No, little miss, I don't have children, never married, never had the chance to settle down long enough." "Why not?" Grace's curiosity was relentless. "Don't you want to?" "Grace, enough." "No, ma'am, it's fine." Nate looked at the 4-year-old with something like sadness in his eyes. "I guess I was always moving, always looking for something I couldn't quite name. Figured I'd settle when I found it. But I never did. Not until—" He stopped, cleared his throat. "Anyway, that's water under the bridge." "What's water under the bridge mean?" Grace asked. "It means the past is past," Claire explained. "Right, Mr. Cross?" "Something like that." Nate stood, carried his empty bowl to the basin. "Mrs. Hartwell, I noticed your fence line is in rough shape. Thought I'd work on that this afternoon if you don't object." "I don't object, but Mr. Cross," Eliza took a breath. "Nate, you're doing too much. The roof alone is several days of work. The fence will take longer. You can't possibly—" "Ma'am, I'm not doing too much. I'm doing what needs doing." He pulled his coat back on. "That's the agreement. That's what I'm here for." "But what about you?" The question burst out before she could stop it. "What about rest? Time to yourself? You can't just work from sunup to sundown." "Yes, I can." His voice was gentle but firm. "Mrs. Hartwell, I've been drifting for 4 years, working odd jobs, moving on when the work dried up or the town got too familiar. I'm used to hard days, used to earning my keep. This is no different. It is different, Eliza heard herself say, because this isn't just work. This is my home, my children, my life you're fixing. And I don't understand why. Nate was quiet for a long moment. Then he glanced at the children, then back at her. Because I can, because it needs doing, and because, he paused, because seeing you beg in that street yesterday, seeing those people laugh while your children cried, that was the kind of wrong I can actually fix. Most things in this world I can't do anything about. But this I can fix. So I am. He left before she could respond, Benjamin trailing after him like a devoted shadow. Clara started washing dishes, Grace played with her doll by the fire, and Eliza stood in the middle of her cabin, feeling untethered, like the rules she'd been living by had suddenly changed and no one had told her the new ones. The morning passed in domestic rhythm. Eliza mended clothes while Clara practiced her letters and Grace napped. Outside, the sound of hammering continued, occasionally punctuated by Benjamin's excited questions and Nate's patient answers. Around midday, Eliza made sandwiches from yesterday's bread and took them outside. Found Nate and Benjamin working on the fence line, clearing debris and pulling out rotten posts. Lunch? She held out the plate. Benjamin grabbed a sandwich immediately. Nate hesitated. Mr. Cross, take it. Eliza kept her voice firm. You've been working for 6 hours. You need to eat. Yes, ma'am. He accepted the sandwich but didn't eat right away, his eyes scanning the horizon like he was looking for something. Or watching for something. Your husband's ranch, Nate said after a moment. What was he raising? Cattle? Horses? The question caught her off guard. Horses. He trained them mostly, breaking them for saddle, teaching them to work. He was good at it. I noticed the corral's empty. I had to sell them. The words hurt. After Samuel died, the banker said I couldn't manage horses on my own. Said I should sell while I could still get decent money. So I did, all except one, a mare named Willow. She's in the barn, too old to sell for much, but I couldn't. Eliza's voice caught. Samuel loved that horse. I couldn't let her go. Nate nodded slowly. Would you mind if I took a look at her, see what shape she's in? Why? Because horses are valuable, ma'am. If you still have land and a corral, you could rebuild. Start small, maybe buy a young mare and a good stallion. Breed them, sell the foals. It's not fast money, but it's honest money. Hope flickered in Eliza's chest. Dangerous hope. I don't have money for breeding stock. I barely have money for food. Not yet. Nate took a bite of sandwich. But spring's coming. In spring, ranchers need help with branding, fencing, building. I can hire out, make enough to buy stock. If you're willing to wait, if you're willing to try more. Benjamin's eyes went wide. Really? We could have horses again? Maybe. Nate's voice was careful. Can't promise anything, but we could try. Eliza looked at this stranger who kept saying we instead of you. This man who was already planning months ahead when their agreement was only for 1 month. Why do you care, she asked. Why does it matter to you what happens to this ranch? Nate met her eyes. Because someone needs to care, ma'am. And right now, I'm the someone who's here. That afternoon, Ruth Chen came calling. Eliza saw the wagon approaching and felt her stomach drop. The Chinese woman who ran the general store with her husband was kind, but her presence meant something. News, gossip, questions Eliza didn't want to answer. Mrs. Hartwell, Ruth climbed down from her wagon carrying a basket. I hope I'm not intruding. Of course not. Eliza wiped her hands on her apron, hyper-aware of how shabby she must look. Please come in. Inside, Ruth set the basket on the table. I brought some things, fabric scraps for the girls, some hard candy, and Edward wanted me to give you this. She pulled out an envelope. What is it? A job offer. Ruth's dark eyes were kind. Edward needs help at the store. Inventory, stocking shelves, dealing with customers. 3 days a week, $1 a day. Eliza's hands trembled as she took the envelope. $3 a week, $12 a month. It wasn't much, but it was something. Something she'd earned, not charity, not dependence. Why knowing? The question came out harsher than she meant. Why would Edward offer me work now after yesterday? Ruth sat down without being invited. Because yesterday was wrong. What they did to you. What they said. Edward and I, we weren't there. We heard about it after. And we were ashamed of our town, ashamed we didn't know how bad things had gotten for you. So this is guilt money. No, Ruth's voice firmed. This is a buy-up. Edward needs help. You need money. It's business, nothing more. Everyone will talk. Let them. Ruth shrugged. People always talk. But Mrs. Hartwell, you have 3 children to feed. You can't afford pride anymore. None of us can. The words stung because they were true. Eliza looked at the envelope, looked at her daughters watching from the corner, looked at the closed door beyond which Nate was working himself to exhaustion on her behalf. 3 days a week, she forced the words out. Which days? Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. I'll need someone to watch the children. Bring them, Ruth smiled. Clara's old enough to help. Grace can play in the back room. We'll manage. Eliza wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain some last scrap of independence, but the envelope in her hands felt like hope. Fragile, precious, impossible to ignore. I'll be there Tuesday. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. Tell Edward, thank you. You can thank him yourself. Ruth stood. Oh, and Mrs. Hartwell, the man working on your roof, Nathaniel Cross. Edward asked around about him. Eliza's heart stuttered. And he used to be a deputy sheriff in Texas, left 4 years ago under unclear circumstances, been drifting since, working odd bars, never staying long. Ruth's expression was neutral. Thought you should know. After Ruth left, Eliza stood holding the envelope and trying to decide what she felt. Relief about the job, unease about Nate's past, gratitude mixed with resentment that people were suddenly offering help after months of silence. Mama, is it good news? Clara touched her arm. Yes, sweetheart, it's good news. I have a job. We'll have money coming in. That's wonderful. Clara's smile was tentative. Does that mean Mr. Cross can leave now, since we'll have money? The question hit like a fist. I don't know, maybe. I don't want him to leave. Grace appeared beside them. He's nice. And he makes Benjamin smile again. And he fixed the roof so we don't get wet when it rains. Why would we want him to leave? We wouldn't. Clara shot Eliza a look, an adult look on a 9-year-old's face. Right, Mama? We want him to stay. Did they? Did she? Eliza didn't know anymore. Yesterday she'd been desperate. Today she had food and firewood and a job offer. Tomorrow she might have choices again. Independence, the ability to stand on her own. But the thought of Nate leaving, of going back to managing everything alone, of watching Benjamin's smile fade and Grace's hope dim, that thought hurt worse than the hunger had. That evening, Nate came in after dark, exhausted and filthy. Benjamin was asleep on his feet, but grinning, proud of a full day's work. Fence is about half done. Nate washed his hands, his movements slow with fatigue. Should have it finished in a few days. Then I'll start on the barn door. It's hanging crooked. Won't last the winter like that. Mr. Cross, Eliza served him dinner, kept her voice neutral. I received a job offer today at Chen's General Store. 3 days a week. Nate looked up. That's good news, ma'am. Real good news. It is. She paused. It means I'll have income, steady income, which means... She couldn't quite finish the sentence. Which means I don't need to stay. Nate set down his fork. Ma'am, are you asking me to leave? No, I'm saying you can if you want to. You've done so much already, more than anyone could expect. And if you have other places to go, other jobs waiting, I don't want to keep you out of obligation. Mrs. Hartwell, Nate's gray eyes held hers. I made an agreement. 1 month. We're 3 days in. I keep my word. If you want me to leave, say so plain. But if you're trying to give me an out because you think you're a burden, then ma'am, you're wrong. I'm here because I want to be. Because this work matters. Because your children matter. And $3 a week from Chen's store isn't going to be enough. You know it. And I know it. I can manage. You've been managing. His voice was gentle but firm. For 5 months, you've been managing. Barely, selling everything, going hungry, begging in the street. That's not managing, ma'am. That's drowning slow. And I'm not going to stand by and watch you drown when I can help. Why? The question burst out. Why do you care so much? You don't know us, don't owe us anything. So why? Nate was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. 4 years ago, I shot a man. He was robbing a bank, had a gun, took a hostage. I was deputy sheriff, did everything by the book, gave warning, aimed for his shoulder, but I missed. He looked down at his hands, hit his chest instead. He died right there in the street. Silence fell like a weight. Turned out the gun wasn't loaded, and the hostage was his 6-year-old daughter. He was desperate, hungry, trying to feed his family. Nate's voice cracked, and I killed him for it. The law said I did right, said it was a clean shoot, justified. But that little girl, he looked up at Eliza. She looked at me with eyes just like Grace's, and she screamed that I'd killed her daddy. And she was right. I had. Tears tracked down his weathered face. Her mother couldn't make it alone. Couldn't feed the girl and her 2 brothers. Last I heard before I left Texas, they'd gone to an orphanage. All 3 of them. Because I killed their father for trying to feed them. Eliza couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. This man she'd thought was a stranger had just given her the most intimate piece of himself. His shame, his guilt, his reason for everything. So when I see you and your children, Nate continued, when I see that same desperate hunger, that same impossible choice, I can't walk away, can't let it happen again. Not when I can stop it. Even if I can't fix what I broke, maybe I can keep it from breaking again. Mr. Cross, Eliza found her voice, that wasn't your fault. You were doing your following the law. You can't blame yourself for, yes, I can. He wiped his face roughly, and I do every day. But ma'am, I'm not asking for forgiveness, not asking you to absolve me. I'm just telling you why I'm here, why I'm staying. So you understand this isn't about you being a burden. This is about me trying to make one thing right in a world where I made something terribly wrong. Benjamin spoke up, his voice small. My pa died trying to fix a fence. Horse spooked, threw him, broke his neck. It was nobody's fault, just bad luck, bad timing. Ma says sometimes bad things just happen and we can't stop them. Your ma's right. Nate's voice steadied. But sometimes we can stop them. Sometimes we're in the right place at the right time to make a difference. And when that happens, we have to try. Even if we're scared, even if we fail, we have to try. Grace climbed down from her chair and walked to Nate. Stood there looking up at him with those impossibly big eyes. You didn't mean to hurt that little girl's daddy. You were trying to help. Sometimes helping goes wrong, but that doesn't mean you stop trying. Out of the mouths of babes, Nate looked at this 4-year-old child, and something in his face cracked open. You're right, little miss. It doesn't mean I stopped trying. Good. Grace climbed into his lap without invitation, settled there like she belonged. Because we need you. Mama needs you, even if she won't say it. Grace, Eliza's face burned. That's enough. It's true, Mama. Clara joined in. You do need him. We all do, and that's okay. Needing people isn't bad. Pa used to say, that's what communities are for. People helping people. That's how we survive. Samuel had said that, had believed it. And Eliza had forgotten, somewhere in the desperate scramble of the last 5 months. Had forgotten that accepting help wasn't weakness. It was wisdom. 1 month, she heard herself say. We agreed to 1 month. Let's see where we are at the end of it. See if... She couldn't finish, couldn't name what she was hoping for. 1 month. Nate agreed, and then we decide together. That night, after the children were asleep and Nate had gone to the barn, Eliza stood at the window and watched snow begin to fall. Soft, gentle, nothing like the harsh storm that had raged the day she'd begged in the street. Everything was changing. The cabin was warmer. The children were fed. There was work to do and money coming in. And a man in the barn who'd promised to stay. But Eliza had learned the hard way that promises broke, that good things ended, that tomorrow was never guaranteed. So she stood at the window and watched the snow and tried not to hope too hard, because hope, she discovered, was the most dangerous thing of all. The first week passed in a blur of work and carefully maintained distance. Eliza started at Chen's store on Tuesday. The walk into town made her stomach clench, remembering the rocks and the laughter, and Margaret Thornton's cruel eyes. But Ruth met her at the door with a warm smile and a list of tasks, and Edward treated her like any other employee. No pity, no judgment, just business. The townspeople who came in stared, whispered. Some turned around and left rather than be served by the desperate widow who'd begged in the street. But others, enough others, simply bought their supplies and left. And at the end of the day, Ruth pressed $3 silver into Eliza's palm. "See you Thursday." $3. It wasn't enough. Nate had been right about that. But it was hers, earned, not given out of charity or obligation or guilt. And that mattered more than the amount. She came home to find the fence finished, the barn door repaired, the wood shelter completed, and stacked full of split logs. Nate and Benjamin were in the corral with Willow, the old mare Eliza hadn't been able to sell. The horse looked better than she had in months, coat brushed, hooves trimmed, moving with something like her old spirit. "Mama, look," Benjamin called out when he saw her. "Mr. Cross says Willow's still got good years left. Says we can use her for breeding if we can find the right stallion." Eliza leaned on the fence rail and watched Nate work. He moved around the horse with quiet confidence, his hands gentle but firm, his voice low and soothing. Willow responded to him like she'd known him all her life, not just a handful of days. "She trusts you," Eliza said. Nate looked over. "Horses are simple, ma'am. You treat them fair, they trust you. People are more complicated." "Are they?" She heard the challenge in her own voice. "Or are people just like horses? Treat them fair, and they'll trust you too." "Maybe." He ran his hand down Willow's neck. "But horses don't lie. Don't pretend. Don't smile while they're planning to kick you. People do all that and more." "Sounds like you've been kicked a lot. Enough times to learn." He opened the gate, led Willow back to the barn. Benjamin followed, still chattering about breeding plans and full prices and dreams that might actually be possible now. Clara had dinner ready when they came inside. Not just ready, but good. The 9-year-old having absorbed everything Eliza taught her and added her own touches. The cabin smelled like home for the first time since Samuel died, and Eliza felt something in her chest unclench just slightly. They ate together, the 5 of them crowded around the table that was too small, passing food and talking about their days. Benjamin described everything he'd learned about fence building. Clara reported that Grace had finally learned to tie her own shoes. Grace demonstrated, proud and beaming. Nate was quiet, mostly listening, occasionally answering direct questions, but never volunteering much about himself. He'd given them his worst secret that first night, and since then had retreated into careful politeness. Present, but distant. There, but not quite. It bothered Eliza more than she wanted to admit. After dinner, Nate helped Benjamin with arithmetic while Eliza mended, and Clara read to Grace from the one book they'd managed to keep, a collection of fairy tales with a cracked spine and water-stained pages. But the words still worked, the stories still transported. "Mr. Cross," Benjamin stared at his slate. "How do you figure percentages? Mama tried to explain, but I don't understand." "Let me see." Nate leaned over the boy's shoulder. "All right, say you've got 100 head of cattle, 20% die in winter. How many you lose?" Benjamin screwed up his face in concentration. 20? "That's right. Now, how'd you figure that?" Because 20% means 20 out of every 100. "Exactly." Nate tapped the slate. "It's just division, son, taking the whole and breaking it into parts. Once you understand that, the rest is easy." "Son," the word slipped out so naturally that Eliza wasn't sure Nate even noticed. But Benjamin did. His face lit up like Christmas morning, and he bent over his slate with renewed determination. "I'll get it, Mr. Cross. I promise I'll get it." "I know you will." Nate stood, stretched, winced at something in his back. "You're smart, Benjamin. Smarter than you think. Just takes practice. He was good with them. Too good. Eliza watched him show Benjamin a calculation trick, listened to him answer Grace's endless questions with patience Samuel had rarely managed, saw him treat Clara's observations with the seriousness they deserved. He fit. That was the problem. He fit so seamlessly into their broken family that Eliza had started forgetting he was temporary, started imagining what it would be like if he stayed, really stayed, not just for 1 month, but forever. And that was dangerous, more dangerous than the hunger had been, because hope hurt worse than despair when it was ripped away. Thursday at the store, Margaret Thornton came in. Eliza was restocking shelves when she felt eyes on her back, turned to find the woman who'd kicked snow at her children standing there with a basket and a superior expression. "Mrs. Hartwell," Margaret's voice dripped false sweetness. "How nice to see you found employment. I'm sure Edward is very generous to take on someone with your limited experience." Ruth appeared beside Eliza instantly. "Mrs. Thornton, what can we help you with today?" "I need flour, 5 pounds, and sugar, and I'd prefer if she didn't handle it." Margaret's eyes never left Eliza's face. "I'm very particular about cleanliness." The insult was clear. Eliza's hands clenched into fists, nails digging into her palms. But before she could speak, Ruth stepped forward. "Mrs. Thornton, Eliza is my employee. If you don't want her assistance, you are welcome to shop elsewhere." "Excuse me?" Margaret's face reddened. "I've been shopping here for 10 years. You can't—" "I can, and I am." Ruth's voice stayed calm but firm. "Edward and I run this store. We choose who we employ, and we choose who we serve. If you can't treat our employees with basic respect, then we don't want your business." Margaret sputtered. "This is outrageous. Wait until my husband hears—" "Tell him." Edward appeared from the back room. "Tell him I said he's welcome to take his business to the next town, 40 miles south. I'm sure they'll appreciate the ride." Margaret stared at them both, clearly expecting someone to back down. When no one did, she grabbed her basket and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Eliza released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. "You didn't have to do that. She's a good customer. You'll lose money." "Some money isn't worth having." Edward's lined face was serious. "What happened to you in that street, Mrs. Hartwell? That was wrong. Ruth and we can't undo it. But we can make sure it doesn't happen again. Not in our store." "Thank you." The words felt inadequate. "Thank you both." "No thanks needed." Ruth squeezed her shoulder. "Now those shelves won't stock themselves." That evening, Eliza came home to find a stranger's horse tied to her fence. Her heart seized. She hurried inside, clutching Clara and Grace close, to find Nate sitting at her table across from a man she'd never seen before. Large, weathered, with a scar running down his left cheek and eyes that held nothing soft. Benjamin was pressed into the corner, silent and scared. Nate's posture was deceptively relaxed, but Eliza could see the tension in his shoulders, could see his right hand resting casually near the knife at his belt. "Mrs. Hartwell," Nate's voice was calm, too calm. "This is Jack Hollis. He's looking for someone. I was just telling him he's got the wrong place." "Wrong place, he says." Jack Hollis's voice was gravel and rust. "But I heard tell there's a man named Cross working here. Used to be a deputy in Texas. And I've been looking for a deputy named Cross for 4 years now." Eliza's blood went cold. "I think you should leave, Mr. Hollis." "I'll leave when I'm ready." Jack didn't even look at her. "See, 4 years ago, Deputy Nathaniel Cross shot my brother. Killed him dead in the street. Said it was justified. Said Daniel was robbing a bank. But what they didn't mention was that Daniel's gun wasn't loaded. That he was just desperate. Just trying to feed his family." The room tilted. This was the brother. The family. The past Nate had been running from. "Your brother took a hostage." Nate's voice stayed level. "A child. He pointed a gun at a 6-year-old girl's head. I didn't know it wasn't loaded. No way I could have known. You could have waited." Jack's hands clenched. "Could have talked him down. Could have done anything except put a bullet in his chest. I did wait. I gave warning. I aimed for his shoulder, but he moved." Nate's jaw tightened. "Mr. Hollis, I'm sorry. Sorrier than you'll ever know. What happened to your brother? To his children, that haunts me every day. But I was doing my job, following procedure. If I could take it back, but you can't. Jack stood slowly. Can't bring Daniel back. Can't undo what you did to his kids. So I've been following you, waiting for the right moment, and I think I found it. His eyes moved to Benjamin, to Clara and Grace, back to Eliza. You've got yourself a nice little family here, Deputy. Be a shame if something happened to them. Be a shame if you had to watch them suffer the way Daniel's kids suffered. Eliza moved without thinking, putting herself between Jack Hollis and her children. Get out. Get out of my house now. Ma'am, I'm not going to hurt you. Jack's smile was cold, not directly, but cross here. He needs to understand what he took from us, needs to feel it. And the best way to make a man feel something is to take away what he loves. He doesn't love us. The lie came swift and desperate. He's just hired help, a drifter. He'll be gone in 3 weeks. He means nothing to us, and we mean nothing to him. That so? Jack looked at Nate. That true, Deputy? These people mean nothing to you? Nate's gray eyes met Eliza's, held them, and she saw everything he'd been hiding. All the careful distance, all the deliberate restraint, all of it stripped away in one unguarded moment. No, his voice was quiet. That's not true. Nate, don't. Eliza's voice broke. Don't give him. They mean everything. Nate stood slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. Mrs. Hartwell and her children, they gave me something I thought I'd lost. Purpose, redemption, a reason to stop running. So if you want to hurt me, Jack, you hurt me, but you leave them alone. They had nothing to do with Daniel, nothing to do with Texas. They're innocent. So are Daniel's kids. Jack's voice went hard. Innocent. And they're in an orphanage now because of you. So no, Deputy, I don't think I'll leave these people alone. I think I'll make sure you watch them struggle the way I watched my niece and nephew struggle. Make sure you feel helpless the way we felt helpless. Over my dead body. Eliza surprised herself with the steel in her voice. Mr. Hollis, I'm sorry for what happened to your brother's children. Truly sorry, but threatening mine won't fix it. Won't bring your brother back. Won't help anyone. Might make me feel better. No, it won't. Clara stepped forward, 9 years old and fearless. My pa died 5 months ago. I know what it's like to lose someone. And I know that hurting other people doesn't make the hurt go away. It just spreads it around. Jack stared at the girl. Your pa have anything to do with his death? No, but even if he did, I wouldn't want revenge. I'd want to understand. Want to know why. Want to make sure it never happened again. Clara's voice shook but held. That's what my pa would want. Not more pain. Just understanding. Something flickered across Jack's scarred face. Not quite regret, not quite sympathy, but something. You're a smart girl, he said finally. Smarter than me, probably. He looked at Nate. This isn't over, Deputy. I'm not going to hurt these people today. But I'm not done with you either. Daniel deserves justice, and I mean to get it. Then turn me in. Nate spread his hands. I'll go peacefully. Face whatever charges you want to bring, but leave them out of it. There are no charges. You know that. The law said you did right. Jack moved to the door. So I have to make my own justice, and I will, when you least expect it, when you've gotten comfortable. That's when I'll take from you what you took from Daniel. He left. The door closed and Eliza's legs gave out. Nate caught her before she hit the floor, his strong arms suddenly around her, supporting her weight. I'm sorry. His voice was ragged. God, Eliza, I'm so sorry. I should have left. Should have known he'd track me down eventually. I've put you and your children in danger and... Stop, Eliza found her voice. Just stop talking and let me think. But thinking was impossible with her heart racing and her children scared, and this man who'd become essential suddenly revealed as dangerous. Not because of who he was now, but because of who he'd been, what he'd done, the past that wouldn't let him go. You need to leave. The words hurt coming out. Tonight. Now, before he comes back. Mrs. Hartwell, Eliza, she pulled away from him. My name is Eliza, and I'm telling you as the owner of this ranch and the mother of these children, you need to go. I can't risk them. Can't risk him coming back. And And what? Benjamin's voice was fierce. Mama, Mr. Cross didn't do anything wrong. He was protecting people, doing his job. You can't blame him for that man's brother being desperate. I'm not blaming him. I'm protecting you. We don't need protecting from Mr. Cross. Clara joined her brother. We need protecting from men like Jack Hollis. And Mr. Cross is the only one here who can do that. Grace started crying. Not loud, just soft, broken sobs that tore Eliza's heart. I don't want Mr. Cross to leave. I don't want anyone else to leave. Oh, sweetheart. Eliza gathered her youngest daughter close. I know you don't. But sometimes people have to leave to keep us safe. That's not true. Grace pulled back, her small face fierce. Sometimes people stay because leaving would hurt more. Because we're stronger together than apart. Right, Mr. Cross? All eyes turned to Nate. He stood there, hands hanging at his sides, looking more uncertain than Eliza had ever seen him. I don't know, little miss. His voice was quiet. I want to believe that. Want to believe I make you stronger instead of putting you in danger. But Jack Hollis is right about one thing. I took someone from him, and whether I meant to or not, whether I followed procedure or not, that pain is real. His anger is real, and he's going to act on it. So we face it together. Benjamin's voice cracked but didn't break. That's what Pa always said. Problems get smaller when more people carry them. Your Pa was a wise man. Nate's voice was rough. But son, this isn't your fight. Yes, it is. Clara stepped beside her brother. You made it our fight when you stood up for us in town, when you stopped them from hurting us, when you fixed our house and fed us and taught Ben how to build fences. You made yourself part of this family, Mr. Cross, and families don't abandon each other when things get hard. Eliza wanted to argue, wanted to insist they were wrong, that safety mattered more than loyalty, that protecting her children was her only job. But looking at their faces, their determination, their absolute certainty that sending Nate away would be worse than keeping him, she couldn't do it. Couldn't send him back into the cold and the loneliness and the running. Couldn't take away the first good thing any of them had found in months. One condition, she heard herself say, if Jack Hollis comes back, if he threatens my children directly, you leave immediately. No arguments, no discussion. You take your horse and you ride away and you let him follow you instead of hurting them. Can you agree to that? Nate's eyes held hers. Yes, ma'am, I can agree to that. Then you stay. The words felt like stepping off a cliff. You stay and we figure this out together. But Nate, she used his first name deliberately. If anything happens to my children because of this, I'll never forgive you. Or myself. Nothing's going to happen to them. His voice carried absolute conviction. I promise you that, Eliza. Whatever it takes, whatever I have to do, your children will be safe. That night, Eliza couldn't sleep. She lay in her bed, listening to her daughter's breathing, trying to convince herself she'd made the right decision. But doubt gnawed at her. What if Jack came back? What if he hurt the children? What if she'd just chosen sentiment over safety? Around midnight, she gave up and went to the window. Found Nate sitting outside the barn, rifle across his knees, keeping watch. He'd probably been there since they all went to bed, would probably stay there until dawn. She wrapped Samuel's coat around her shoulders and went out. The snow crunched under her bare feet, cold and sharp, but she barely felt it. You should be asleep, Nate said without turning. So should you. Can't, not with Jack Hollis knowing where to find us. Eliza sat beside him, close enough to feel his warmth, but not quite touching. Tell me the truth, is he going to come back? Yes, no hesitation, no false comfort. He's been tracking me for 4 years. He's not going to stop now. Then why did he leave? Why not just do whatever he's planning now? Because your daughter got to him. Nate's voice was soft. Clara, what she said about understanding instead of revenge, that gave him pause. Might not have changed his mind permanently, but it bought us time. Time for what? Time to figure out a plan. Time to prepare. Time to... He stopped, started again. Time to make sure you and your children are protected, no matter what happens. You're going to leave, aren't you? The realization hit like a fist. You're going to let him catch you somewhere far from here. If it comes to that, yes. No, Eliza grabbed his arm. No, you promised. You promised 1 month. You promised to help us get through winter. You can't just... Eliza! He turned to face her, and in the moonlight his eyes looked ancient, haunted. If it's a choice between keeping my promise and keeping your children safe, there's no choice. There's only one right answer. The right answer is we face this together. She didn't let go of his arm. The right answer is we're stronger as a unit than as individuals. The right answer is you stop trying to be a martyr and accept that you have people who care about you now. I'm not worth caring about. That's not your decision to make. Her voice shook with sudden anger. You don't get to decide your own worth, Nate. Other people decide that. And we've decided you matter, all of us. Benjamin, Clara, Grace. We've decided you're worth keeping, worth fighting for. So stop trying to throw yourself away like you're garbage. He stared at her. You really believe that? Yes. The word came out fierce. I believe it. And if you can't believe it yourself, then believe that we need you, not just for the work, not just for the protection, but because you make us better, make us whole in a way we haven't been since Samuel died. Nate's hand came up slowly, carefully, and cupped her cheek. His palm was rough and warm, and Eliza found herself leaning into it without meaning to. You're the strongest woman I've ever met. His voice was quiet. You know that? Samuel Hartwell was a lucky man. Samuel was a good man who died too soon and left me drowning. The honesty surprised her. And you're a good man who showed up at exactly the right moment. That's not luck, Nate. That's something else. Something bigger. Like fate. Like grace. She covered his hand with hers. Undeserved, unexpected, but precious beyond measure. They sat there in the snow, hands joined, breath misting in the cold air. And for just a moment, Eliza let herself imagine a future. Not just survival, but actual living. Not just managing, but thriving. Not alone, but together. Then Nate pulled away gently. You should go inside, you're freezing. So are you. I'm used to it. That doesn't make it right. Eliza stood but didn't leave. Nate, promise me something. Promise me you won't make any decisions without talking to me first. About Jack, about leaving, about any of it. Promise me that. He looked up at her, this woman who'd somehow become the center of his world in less than 2 weeks. I promise. Good. She started toward the cabin, then turned back. And Nate, thank you for staying, for caring, for making us believe things could get better. She didn't wait for his response. Just went inside and closed the door and leaned against it, heart pounding. She was falling in love with him. That was the truth she'd been avoiding. Falling in love with a man who wasn't her husband, who came with dangerous baggage, who might leave at any moment. And she had no idea if that made her brave or foolish or some terrible combination of both. 3 days passed with no sign of Jack Hollis, and the waiting was worse than any confrontation could have been. Nate barely slept. Eliza would wake in the middle of the night and see lamplight in the barn, or find him sitting on the porch with his rifle, watching the horizon like he could will danger away through sheer vigilance. He worked during the day with the same focused intensity, finishing the barn repairs and starting on the corral fence, always positioning himself where he could see anyone approaching. Benjamin shadowed him constantly, now less like a student and more like a deputy, scanning the landscape with the same weary attention. The boy had lost something in Jack Hollis's visit. Not innocence exactly, but the last remnants of childhood certainty that adults could keep bad things from happening. Mr. Cross, Benjamin said on the third morning, handing Nate a hammer. If that man comes back, what are we going to do? We're going to handle it. Nate drove a nail with 3 precise strikes. Don't you worry about that. But how? He wants to hurt you, wants to hurt us to hurt you. How do you handle someone like that? Nate set down the hammer. Son, some men are carrying so much pain, they don't know what to do with it except spread it around. Jack Hollis is one of those men. His brother died, and Jack thinks revenge will make that hurt less. It won't, but he has to figure that out himself. What if he doesn't figure it out before he does something terrible? Then I stop him, simple as that. Nate's voice carried absolute certainty. Whatever it takes, I stop him. But Benjamin, I need you to promise me something. What? If things go bad, if Jack shows up and there's trouble, you get your mother and sisters and you run. Don't try to help me. Don't try to be brave. Just run. And don't look back. But promise me. Nate's gray eyes were steel. Your pa died and left your mama alone. I'm not going to be responsible for you dying and leaving her with nobody. You're the man of this family, son. That means protecting the women, even if it means running. Even if it means leaving me behind, you understand? Benjamin's jaw worked. Yes, sir, I understand. Good. Nate picked up the hammer again. Now hand me those nails. This fence won't build itself. Inside the cabin, Clara was teaching Grace to read while Eliza prepared for her Saturday shift at Chen's store. The 9-year-old had taken over most of the household management without being asked, seeming to understand that her mother's mind was elsewhere, consumed with worry about Jack Hollis and what his return would mean. Mama, Clara said, not looking up from the book, are you in love with Mr. Cross? Eliza's hands froze in the middle of braiding her hair. What kind of question is that? An honest one. Clara kept her eyes on the page. You look at him different now, and you say his name different, like it means something. Clara, that's not appropriate. I don't mind if you are. The girl finally looked up. In love with him, I mean. Pa's been gone 5 months, and that's a long time to be alone. And Mr. Cross is good. He takes care of us, makes you smile. I think Pa would approve. Your father hasn't even been gone half a year. Eliza's voice came out harsher than she meant. How can you talk about me replacing him so easily? I'm not talking about replacing him. Clara's voice stayed calm, adult in a way that made Eliza's heart hurt. Nobody could replace Pa, but Mr. Cross doesn't have to replace him to still be important, to still matter, to still be someone worth loving. Grace looked between them, confused. I love Mr. Cross. He's nice to me. Is that wrong? No, sweetheart. Eliza gathered her youngest daughter close. That's not wrong, it's just complicated. Why? Grace's logic was relentless. If someone's nice and makes you happy and helps you, why is loving them complicated? Because love meant vulnerability. Because love meant depending on someone who might leave. Because love meant giving someone the power to destroy you. And Eliza had already been destroyed once. She couldn't survive it again. But she couldn't explain that to a 4-year-old. So she just kissed Grace's forehead and said, sometimes grown-up feelings are hard to explain, baby. Just trust that Mama knows what she's doing. Clara's eyes said she didn't believe that for a second, but she went back to the reading lesson without argument. At Chen's store, the day started normal enough. Eliza restocked shelves, helped customers, swept floors. Edward had her working the register now, trusting her with money and calculations, treating her like a valued employee rather than an act of charity. It felt good, felt like dignity slowly being restored. Then Victor Blackwood walked in. Eliza's stomach dropped. The banker who held the mortgage on her land, who'd refused to extend her loan after Samuel's death, who'd looked at her desperation and seen opportunity rather than humanity. He was a tall man with silver hair and expensive clothes, carrying himself with the assurance of someone who'd never worried about money a day in his life. Mrs. Hartwell, his voice was smooth, cultured. How unexpected to see you here. Mr. Blackwood, Eliza kept her voice neutral. What can I help you find? Actually, I came to speak with you. He glanced around the empty store. Ruth and Edward were in the back room. About your property. The mortgage is current. Eliza's hands clenched. I've made every payment since Samuel died. Barely. Victor's smile was thin. You're surviving month to month, Mrs. Hartwell. One bad winter, one sick child, one unexpected expense, and you'll default. We both know it. What's your point? My point is I'd like to make you an offer. A generous one. I'll buy your property for $2,000. That's well above market value for a struggling ranch with a widow owner. You could take that money, move somewhere civilized, give your children actual opportunities instead of... No. The word came out flat, hard. Mrs. Hartwell, be reasonable. I said no. Eliza stepped closer, dropping her voice so any customers who might enter wouldn't hear. I know what my property is worth, Mr. Blackwood. And I know you want it because of the water rights. Because my creek feeds into your land. Because buying me out would give you control of the whole valley. Well, you can't have it. That land is my children's inheritance, their future, and I will die before I let you take it from them. Victor's expression hardened. You're making a mistake. Winter's barely started. By March, you'll be begging me to take that ranch off your hands. And when you come to me then, my offer will be half what it is now. Then I guess I'll see you in March. Eliza turned her back on him, hands shaking with rage and fear. Now, if you're not buying anything, I need to get back to work. She heard him leave, the door closing with deliberate softness that somehow felt more threatening than a slam. Ruth appeared from the back room immediately. I heard. Her voice was tight. That man is poison, Eliza. You watch yourself around him. He wants my land. He wants everyone's land. Ruth began rearranging items that didn't need rearranging, her movements sharp with anger. Been buying up property at all over the territory. Small ranchers who can't make payments, widows who can't manage a loan. He swoops in with his generous offers and his civilized manner, and people who don't know better take his money and leave. Then he consolidates the land, controls the water, and charges everyone else whatever he wants. Samuel never trusted him. Eliza remembered conversations from before, when things were good. Said any man who smiled that much while talking about money was hiding something rotten underneath. Your husband was right. Ruth's dark eyes were fierce. You hold on to that land, Eliza. Whatever it takes, because once Blackwood owns the water rights, he owns the whole valley, and the rest of us will be at his mercy. The weight of it pressed down on Eliza's shoulders. It wasn't just about her anymore. Wasn't just about keeping a roof over her children's heads. Her small ranch with its struggling finances and broken fences was somehow the last line of defense against a man who wanted to own everything. She thought about telling Nate when she got home, then decided against it. He had enough to worry about with Jack Hollis. He didn't need to know that their problems were multiplying like weeds in untended soil. But secrets had a way of coming out, especially in small territories where everyone knew everyone else's business. That evening, as Eliza was making dinner, Benjamin burst through the door with news. Mama, there's talk in town. They're saying Mr. Blackwood is hiring men. Rough men, cowboys and drifters who work for cash and don't ask questions. Nate, who'd been washing up at the basin, went still. Where'd you hear this? At the feed store, two men were talking. They didn't know I was listening. Benjamin's face was troubled. One of them said Blackwood's planning to make examples. Said small ranchers who won't sell are going to face accidents, property damage, livestock deaths, things that look natural but aren't. That's just talk. Eliza tried to keep her voice calm. Men exaggerate, make things sound worse than they are. Maybe, Nate dried his hands slowly, or maybe Blackwood's decided to stop asking nicely. Mrs. Hartwell, did something happen today? Something you haven't mentioned? Eliza met his eyes and saw he already knew. Saw he'd probably heard about Blackwood's visit to the store before Benjamin had even gotten home. Small towns didn't keep secrets well. He made me an offer for the ranch. She set down the spoon she'd been stirring with. $2,000. I refused. $2,000. Nate's voice was carefully neutral. That's a lot of money, Eliza. It's not enough. She turned to face him fully. This ranch is worth more than money. It's Samuel's legacy, my children's future, and I won't hand it over to a man who wants to control everything and everyone in this valley. Even if keeping it means putting yourself in danger? Even then, she lifted her chin. I've been scared before, Nate, been desperate, been beaten down, but I'm still here, still standing. And I'm not going to let Victor Blackwood or anyone else chase me off my own land. Something shifted in Nate's expression. Pride, maybe? Or respect? All right, then. We fight, but we fight smart. He looked at Benjamin. Starting tomorrow, you don't go anywhere alone. Clara, same for you. Grace stays with your mother at all times. We assume Blackwood's men are watching. Assume they are looking for opportunities. And we don't give them any. You think he'll really come after us? Clara's voice was small. I think desperate men do desperate things. Nate crouched down to her level. But here's what you need to understand. Blackwood wants to scare you, wants you to feel helpless. That's how men like him win. They make you afraid and fear makes you careless. So we're not going to be afraid. We're going to be careful. There's a difference. I'm scared anyway, Grace whispered. That's okay. Nate pulled the little girl into a hug. Being scared is normal. It's what you do with the scared that matters. You can let it freeze you or you can use it to stay sharp. Stay alert. We're going to use it to stay sharp. All of us together. That night, Eliza woke to voices outside. Low and urgent. She grabbed Samuel's old coat and crept to the window. Saw 3 figures by the barn. Nate and 2 other men, one of whom she recognized as Edward Chen. She should have stayed inside, should have let the men handle whatever business they were discussing. But the fear from earlier, the weight of Victor Blackwood's threats and Jack Hollis's promise of revenge, drove her outside before she could think better of it. Watching the property, Edward was saying as she approached. My cousin saw them yesterday, 2 men, rough-looking, sitting horses on the ridge above your creek. Blackwood's men. Nate's voice was grim. Seeing what we've got, planning their move. There's more. The other man spoke up. Eliza recognized him now as Jacob Stone, the town marshal, tall and weathered with a badge that caught moonlight. I got word from the territorial marshal's office. There's been complaints filed against you, Mrs. Hartwell. Trespassing, property damage, theft. What? Eliza's voice came out sharp. That's impossible. I haven't left my property except to work at Chen's store. How could I? You couldn't. Marshal Stone's voice was gentle. These are false complaints, ma'am. Manufactured, but they're official, filed with the territorial office. Which means technically, I could arrest you. Take you to the county seat for trial. Let me guess. Nate's voice was cold. Victor Blackwood filed these complaints. His lawyer did, but yes. The marshal pulled out a folded paper. I'm supposed to serve you with this summons, Mrs. Hartwell. Appear in court next month to answer charges. And if she appears, Nate asked, what happens to her children while she's gone? Who takes care of the ranch? Property would likely be seized pending trial. Marshal Stone's face was troubled. Standard procedure in cases where the accused can't maintain their holdings. Blackwood would probably offer to purchase it at auction for pennies on the dollar. So this is his play. Edward's anger was palpable. Force her to court, take her property. All legal and proper. There has to be something we can do. Nate turned to the marshal. Some way to fight this. There is. Marshal Stone looked at Eliza. Don't go. Ignore the summons. Force them to come arrest you here on your property in front of witnesses. Make Blackwood's corruption visible. Sometimes the best defense is making your enemy show his true face. But that means when they do come, Eliza started, it means we're ready. The marshal's voice was firm. It means the whole town knows what's happening, knows it's wrong. And ma'am, public opinion matters. Even territorial judges have to face voters eventually. What if public opinion isn't enough? Eliza's voice shook. What if Blackwood wins anyway? What happens to my children? He won't win. Nate's voice was absolute. We won't let him. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. He turned to face her fully. Eliza, I've been a coward for 4 years. Running from what I did. Running from responsibility. Running from anything that might require me to stand and fight. But I'm done running. You stand, I stand with you. Blackwood wants this ranch. He's going to have to go through me first. And I promise you, that's not going to be easy. Marshal Stone cleared his throat. Mr. Cross, I appreciate the sentiment. But you should know I did some checking on you. Know about what happened in Texas. Know about Jack Hollis looking for you. If Blackwood's men find out you're here, they might use that. Might bring in Hollis. Turn this into something bigger than a land dispute. Let them try. Nate's jaw set hard. I'm not hiding anymore. Not from Hollis. Not from Blackwood. Not from anyone. I made mistakes. I'll answer for them. But not until these people are safe. Not until Eliza and her children have what they need. Edward clasped Nate's shoulder. You're a good man, Cross. Ruth and I will spread word. Make sure people know what Blackwood's doing. Make sure when trouble comes, you're not facing it alone. Appreciate it. Nate shook his hand. But you be careful. Blackwood's got money and influence. He could make things hard for you. Let him try. Edward's smile was grim. I've been running that store for 20 years. Blackwood needs me more than I need him. And I'm tired of watching good people get crushed by bad men with expensive suits. After they left, Eliza stood in the cold with Nate, neither speaking, both lost in thought. I'm sorry, she finally said. Sorry you got dragged into this. Sorry your life got complicated because you stopped to help us. My life was already complicated. Nate's voice was soft. You just gave it meaning. There's a difference. Nate, I need to tell you something. Eliza took a breath. When I stopped at your door that first day, I was planning to keep riding. Was planning to drift through Wyoming and end up somewhere north. Somewhere cold and empty where I could disappear. I was tired, Eliza. Tired of carrying guilt. Tired of waking up every morning knowing I'd killed a man and destroyed his family. I wasn't looking for redemption. I was looking for oblivion. He paused. Then I saw you in that street. Saw your children hungry and scared. Saw the whole town turn their backs while you begged. And something in me broke. Or maybe something in me healed. I don't know which, but I knew I couldn't keep running. Knew I had to stop. Had to try to do something right, even if I'd done so much wrong. You've done everything right. Eliza's voice was fierce. Everything. My children are fed because of you. My ranch is still standing because of you. We're alive because of you. And now I've brought you more trouble. Jack Hollis. Victor Blackwood. All of it connected to me. No, she grabbed his arms, forced him to look at her. Blackwood was coming whether you were here or not. He's been circling this ranch since before Samuel died. And Jack Hollis, his anger is his own. You didn't create it. You just became the target. But neither of those things are your fault, Nate. Neither of them are reasons for you to leave. Then what are the reasons to stay? His voice was barely a whisper. Because I'm falling in love with you, Eliza. And that scares me more than Hollis or Blackwood or anything else. Because loving someone means you can lose them, means you can fail them. And I don't know if I can survive failing again. The words hung between them, raw and honest and terrifying. Then we don't fail, Eliza heard herself say. We fight together. And if we fall together. But Nate, I can't do this alone anymore. Can't pretend I don't need you. Can't pretend you're just hired help or temporary or anything except what you actually are. And what's that? Essential. The word came out fierce. You're essential, Nate Cross, to me, to my children, to this ranch and this life and everything we're trying to build. So stop trying to protect me from you and just stay. Really stay. Not for a month, not until the work's done. Just stay. He kissed her then, quick and almost desperate, his cold lips against hers, his hands cupping her face like she was something precious he'd almost lost. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. I'll stay. His voice was rough. God help us both, I'll stay. They went inside together, hands joined, and found all three children awake and watching from the doorway. About time, Clara said, trying to sound adult and failing through her grin. Benjamin just nodded, satisfied, and Grace launched herself at both of them, wrapping her small arms around both their legs and holding on like she'd never let go. We're a family now, the 4-year-old announced. A real family, right? Eliza looked at Nate, saw her own hope and fear reflected in his eyes. Right, she said. A real family. The next week brought a deceptive calm, like the pause before a storm breaks. Nate worked with Benjamin to fortify the ranch, not just repairing, but strengthening. They reinforced the barn doors with iron bars salvaged from old wagon wheels, fixed shutters on every window so they could be barred from inside. Nate even showed Benjamin how to create sightlines, positions where they could see anyone approaching from any direction. You're preparing for a siege, Eliza said one morning, watching them work. I'm preparing for possibilities. Nate hammered a bracket into place. Hoping for the best, planning for the worst. Ruth and Edward proved as good as their word. Stories began circulating through Bitter Creek. Not gossip exactly, but information. People talking about Victor Blackwood's land acquisitions, about widows forced to sell, about water rights and control and what it would mean if one man owned the whole valley's water supply. Marshall Stone made a point of riding past Eliza's property twice a day, making his presence known. Other ranchers started doing the same. Not stopping, not making a fuss, just riding the perimeter, letting anyone watching know that this property was being watched in return. The community was circling wagons, protecting their own. But Blackwood's men were watching too. Eliza saw them sometimes on the ridge line, silhouettes against the sky, never close enough to confront, never doing anything illegal, just watching, waiting. It set her nerves on edge, this constant awareness of being observed. She found herself jumping at shadows, her hand flying to her chest at unexpected sounds. The children felt it too. Grace stopped playing outside alone. Clara kept the kitchen knife close when she cooked. Benjamin slept with his father's old hunting rifle beside his bed. They were living under siege without a shot being fired. On Tuesday of the second week, Eliza arrived at Chen's store to find a crowd gathered outside. Not angry exactly, but agitated, worried. "What's happening?" she asked Ruth. "Another ranch." Ruth's face was tight. "The Peterson place, 10 miles north. Barn burned last night, lost everything. Horses, equipment, winter feed. Was anyone hurt?" "No, thank God. But Peterson's saying it was arson. Says he saw riders leaving just before the flames started. 2 men on dark horses heading south, toward Blackwood's land." The implication hung unspoken. "Did he report it to the marshal?" "He did. Stone's investigating. But without proof, without witnesses who will testify." Ruth shook her head. "Peterson's ruined. He'll have to sell now. Can't rebuild without capital. And guess who's already made him an offer?" Eliza's stomach sank. "Blackwood." "Blackwood," Ruth confirmed. "At half what the property's worth, of course. But Peterson doesn't have a choice anymore. He's got a wife and 6 children. Winter's coming. He needs money to relocate before the snow gets too deep." Fear coiled in Eliza's chest. If Blackwood would burn Peterson's barn, what would he do to her? She had Nate, yes, but Nate couldn't watch every building, every fence line, every approach all at once. She worked through the day in a fog of dread, jumping every time the door opened, expecting to see smoke on the horizon, expecting news that her own cabin was burning. When her shift ended, she practically ran home, her heart not settling until she saw the cabin intact, smoke rising from the chimney, Benjamin and Nate working on the corral fence. "Everything all right?" Nate took one look at her face and set down his tools. "Peterson's barn burned last night. Blackwood's men." Nate's expression went flat and dangerous. "Anyone hurt?" "No, but Peterson's ruined. He has to sell. And Blackwood swoops in to buy." Nate looked toward the ridgeline where they'd last seen watchers. "He's making examples, showing people what happens when they refuse him." "What do we do?" "We don't panic." Nate's voice was steady. "We don't give him the satisfaction. Tonight I'll sleep in the barn. Benjamin will watch the house. We take turns keeping watch until this is over. You can't go without sleep indefinitely. I can go longer than you think." His eyes met hers. "Eliza, I'm not going to let them burn you out. I'm not going to let Blackwood win. You're just one man." "No." He gestured toward the road where dust marked another rancher riding past on patrol. "I'm not. The whole valley's watching now. Blackwood moves against you, everyone knows. Everyone sees. And that makes it harder for him to hide what he's doing." That night, Eliza couldn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to every sound, her mind conjuring threats from ordinary noises. The wind became footsteps. Settling timbers became breaking wood. An owl's call became a signal between raiders. Around 2 in the morning, she gave up and went to check on Nate. Found him in the barn as promised. Not sleeping, but sitting with his rifle, watching the door. "You should be resting," he said without looking at her. "So should you." "Can't, not until—" He stopped, tilted his head. "You hear that?" Eliza strained her ears. At first nothing, then horses, multiple horses, moving fast, coming from the north. "Get the children." Nate's voice was sharp, controlled. "Get them to the storm cellar. Now, them." But Now, Eliza. She ran, burst into the cabin, shook the children awake. Storm cellar. All of you, don't argue. It die move. To their credit, they didn't question. Benjamin grabbed Grace. Clara grabbed the emergency pack they'd prepared. Water, food, blankets. Within 60 seconds, all three were in the cellar beneath the cabin floor. The trap door closed over them. Eliza started to follow, then stopped. Grabbed Samuel's rifle from above the door. If Nate was going to face whatever was coming, he wouldn't do it alone. She met him in the yard, 6 riders approaching fast, firelight from torches turning their faces demonic. I told you to get in the cellar. Nate didn't take his eyes off the approaching riders, and I told you we face things together. He glanced at her, and despite everything, despite the fear and the approaching threat, his mouth quirked. Stubborn woman. Stubborn man. The riders pulled up 20 feet away. Eliza recognized one of them, Lucas Grant, a known troublemaker who worked odd jobs for anyone who'd pay. The others were strangers, hard men with harder eyes. Evening, folks. Lucas's smile was all teeth. Nice property you got here. Be a shame if something happened to it. State your business. Nate's voice was flat. Then get off this land. Our business is simple. Lucas gestured with his torch. Mr. Blackwood sent us with a message. He's willing to increase his offer. $2,500, final price. You got until Friday to accept. And if I don't, Eliza forced her voice steady, then accidents happen. Lucas's smile widened. Barn fires, fence breaks, livestock deaths. You're just one woman alone out here. Can't watch everything all the time. Something's bound to go wrong. She's not alone. Nate's voice went cold. And you need to leave, now. Or what? One of the other riders spoke up. You gonna shoot all 6 of us, Drifter? You fast enough for that? Don't need to be fast. Nate's rifle never wavered. Just need to be willing. Question is, which one of you wants to die first for Victor Blackwood's money? Silence. The riders exchanged glances, suddenly less certain. That's what I thought. Nate took a step forward. Blackwood pays you to intimidate, to threaten, maybe to burn undefended barns. But he doesn't pay you to die. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to turn those horses around. You're going to ride back to Blackwood. And you're going to tell him that Mrs. Hartwell says no. Her land isn't for sale, not at any price. And the next time he sends men with torches, they'd better be ready to use them, because we're ready to defend. Lucas's hand moved toward his gun. Nate's rifle shifted slightly. Don't. The word carried absolute finality. I was a deputy for 12 years. I know exactly where to put a bullet to drop a man without killing him. But I've also been on the drift for 4 years, and I'm tired, real tired. So maybe my aim's not what it used to be. Maybe I missed that shoulder shot and hit something more vital. You willing to bet your life on my marksmanship? Lucas's hand moved away from his gun. This isn't over. No, Nate agreed, it's not. But tonight is. Ride out. They did, but slowly, trying to salvage pride from retreat. When the sound of hooves finally faded, Eliza's legs went weak. They'll be back. Yes. Nate didn't lower his rifle until the riders were completely out of sight. But not tonight. Tonight we won. That wasn't winning, that was delaying. Sometimes that's all winning is. He finally looked at her. You did good, didn't panic, didn't back down. I was terrified. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway. He touched her arm gently. Go get the children. Tell them it's safe. I'll keep watch until dawn. Nate, I'm fine, Eliza. Go take care of your children. That's what matters. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist he come inside, rest, let someone else shoulder the burden. But she saw the set of his jaw, the determination in his eyes, and knew it would be useless. So she went to retrieve her children and tried to calm their fears while outside, Nate Cross stood watch against the darkness. Marshal Stone arrived at first light, Edward Chen with him. Heard there was trouble last night. Stone's face was grim. 6 of Blackwood's men. Nate hadn't slept. His eyes were red-rimmed but alert. Made threats. Nate ran them off. Can you identify them? Lucas Grant for certain. The others were strangers, Stone wrote in his notebook. That's something. Grant's known to us. Got a reputation for hiring out to the highest bidder. If he was here making threats, that ties back to Blackwood. Will it be enough? Eliza asked. Enough to stop him? Not yet. Stone's honesty was brutal. Grant will say he was just passing by, maybe had too much to drink, said some things he didn't mean. Without proof of who hired him, it's his word against yours. So we wait for him to actually burn us out? Eliza's voice rose. Wait for him to hurt my children before the law will act? No, Edward spoke up. We don't wait. We make it impossible for him to move against you without everyone knowing. He pulled out a piece of paper. Ruth and I talked to some people. We're organizing a watch schedule. Different ranchers, different families, each taking a shift to ride patrol around your property. Someone will always be within shouting distance. Blackwood makes a move, there'll be witnesses. That's too much, Eliza protested. You can't ask people to. We're not asking. Edward's smile was kind. They volunteered. Eliza, people remember when you and Samuel helped rebuild Miller's barn after the fire 5 years ago. Remember when you took in the Rodriguez children when their ma was sick? Remember all the times you gave without asking for anything back. This is the valley taking care of its own. Eliza felt tears prick her eyes. I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept help. Ruth appeared from the wagon carrying more supplies. Say you'll stop trying to do everything alone. Say you'll let people who care about you actually show it. Nate caught Eliza's eye and she saw understanding there. He'd been running for 4 years, refusing help, refusing connection, refusing to let anyone care about him, and it had nearly destroyed him. He wouldn't let her make the same mistake. Thank you, Eliza's voice broke. All of you, thank you. The watch rotation started that afternoon. Tom Miller took the first shift, riding a slow circuit around the property boundaries. His presence was both reassuring and unsettling, a reminder that they needed protection, that the threat was real and ongoing. But it also meant Nate could sleep. For the first time in days, he allowed himself to rest, collapsing in the barn for a few hours while someone else kept watch. Eliza used the time to take stock. Food supplies were holding. The firewood shelter was full. Her next payment to the bank wasn't due for 2 weeks. If they could just hold on until spring, until Nate could hire out for branding season, until they had enough capital to buy breeding stock. But that was months away. And Blackwood clearly wasn't planning to wait. She was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at her ledger of debts and income, when Clara appeared beside her. Mama, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. If we married Mr. Cross, would that help? With the ranch, I mean. Would it be easier if there was a man's name on the deed? The question caught Eliza completely off guard. Clara, that's not, we haven't even discussed. But you love him. Clara said it simple, certain, and he loves you. Everyone can see it, and Pa's been gone 5 months. And I know that's not very long, but Mama, Pa wouldn't want you to be alone. He'd want you to be happy. He'd want us to be safe. And Mr. Cross makes us both those things. Marriage isn't just about practicality, Clara. It's about, I know what it's about. The 9-year-old's voice was patient, like she was explaining something to a younger child. It's about love and partnership and building a life together. And you and Mr. Cross already have all that. You just haven't said the words yet. Eliza stared at her daughter, this wise beyond her years child who saw things Eliza was still trying to deny. What if he leaves? The fear came out raw. What if Jack Hollis comes back? Or Blackwood succeeds? Or something else happens and he decides it's not worth it? Clara, I can't lose someone else. I barely survived losing your father. I won't survive losing Nate too. Then don't lose him. Clara climbed into Eliza's lap, too big for it really, but needing the closeness. Hold on tight. Fight for him. Let him fight for you. Mama, love is always a risk, always, but it's a risk worth taking. When did you get so smart? I had good teachers. Clara smiled. Pa taught me to be brave. You taught me to be strong. And Mr. Cross is teaching me that sometimes the bravest thing is letting people in. That evening, after the children were asleep and the watch had changed to William Rodriguez, Eliza found Nate in the barn, checking on Willow. Can't sleep? He asked without turning. Too much on my mind. Same. He ran his hand down the mare's neck. Been thinking about spring, about breeding plans, about, he stopped, started again. About futures that might not exist if we don't get through winter first. Nate, Eliza moved closer. Clara asked me something today about marriage, about whether having a husband would make it harder for Blackwood to take the ranch. His hand stilled on the horse's neck. Would it? Legally? Maybe. Socially? Definitely. A married woman with a man to defend her claim is harder to push around than a widow alone. She took a breath. But that's not why I'm telling you this. Then why? Because I need you to know that if we ever discuss that, if we ever decide to make this permanent, it won't be for legal protection. It won't be for convenience. It'll be because, her voice caught, because I love you, Nate Cross, and I'm tired of pretending don't. Tired of pretending you're temporary when you've become the most permanent thing in my life. He turned to face her fully. Eliza, I'm a drifter with a past, a man who killed someone and ran from it. I've got Jack Hollis hunting me and Victor Blackwood threatening you because of me. I'm the worst possible choice for you're the only choice. She stepped closer. You're the man who stood up for us when no one else would, who worked yourself to exhaustion to keep us safe, who looks at my children like they're precious, who makes me feel like maybe, just maybe, tomorrow might be better than today. You're not the worst choice, Nate. You're the best one I could possibly make. You deserve better. I deserve someone who loves me and my children, someone who shows up, someone who stays. She took his hands. You're all of those things. So stop telling me what I deserve and start telling me what you want. His eyes searched hers. I want you, all of you, not for a month, not for a season, forever. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to teach Benjamin to be a man, want to watch Clara grow into the extraordinary woman she's becoming. Want to hear Grace's laugh until I'm old and gray. His voice roughened. I want a family, a real one, this one, your family, if you'll have me. We already have you. Eliza's smile was watery. The question is, will you have us? Is that? He looked stunned. Are you asking me to marry you? I'm asking you to stay. Really stay. Not as hired help, not as temporary protection, as my husband, as their father, as part of this family forever. For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then slowly, carefully, he sank to one knee in the hay and straw of the barn. Eliza Hartwell, I don't have a ring, don't have much of anything except a past I'm trying to make peace with and a future I'm trying to build. But I'm asking you anyway. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you? Yes. The word came out choked with tears. Yes, yes, yes. He stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her properly this time, deeply, like a man who'd found something he thought he'd lost forever. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Eliza was laughing through her tears. The children are going to be insufferable about this. They've been pushing for it since day 3. Smart kids. Nate's smile was the most genuine thing she'd ever seen. Must get it from their mother and their soon-to-be father. The words settled over them like a benediction. Father, family, forever. Outside, snow began to fall again. But inside the barn, wrapped in each other's arms, Eliza and Nate had found something warmer than any fire. They had found home. The next morning, they told the children over breakfast. Grace's shriek of joy could probably be heard in town. Clara cried happy tears. Benjamin just grinned and said, about time. I was starting to think I'd have to lock you two in the barn together. Benjamin Hartwell, Eliza's face flamed. What? It's true, you've been dancing around each other for weeks. We all saw it. Your children are very observant. Nate observed, trying not to laugh. They're menaces. But Eliza was smiling. All of them are menaces now, Nate corrected gently. And something in those 2 words, our now, made Eliza's heart swell. They decided to keep the engagement quiet for now. With Blackwood's threats and Jack Hollis still out there somewhere, advertising their happiness felt like painting a target. But the children couldn't completely hide their joy, and word spread anyway through the small network of ranchers keeping watch. Tom Miller congratulated them during his shift. Ruth showed up with fabric for a wedding dress. Even Marshall Stone allowed himself a small smile when he heard. "About time someone had good news in this valley," he said. But the good news came with a countdown. They set the wedding for 3 weeks out, right before Christmas. Time enough for Nate to finish the winter preparations, for Eliza to make arrangements, for the community to plan a celebration that would lift spirits in a hard season. Time enough, Eliza hoped, to survive whatever Blackwood was planning next. 2 days before the wedding, Jack Hollis came back. Eliza was at Chen's store, Clara and Grace with her, when she saw him ride past. The same scarred face, the same hard eyes. But something was different this time. He wasn't watching the store. He was heading out of town, riding north, toward her ranch. Fear seized her chest. Ruth, I have to go. Now, Brain. What's wrong?" "Jack Hollis. He's heading to the ranch. Nate's there alone with Benjamin." Ruth didn't waste time with questions, just grabbed Clara and Grace. "I'll keep the girls here. You go. Edward," she called to her husband, "get Marshall Stone. Tell him to ride to the Hartwell place, fast." Eliza ran for the wagon, her hands shaking so hard she could barely work the reins. The 2 miles home had never felt so long. Every second stretched into eternity, her mind conjuring terrible images. Nate shot, Benjamin hurt, the cabin burning. Please, she prayed to a God she'd been angry at since Samuel died. Please, not again. I can't lose him. Not when I just found him. She reached the ranch to find Nate and Benjamin in the yard, very much alive. Jack Hollis sat on his horse, but he wasn't threatening. He was just sitting there, talking. Eliza jumped from the wagon, ready to throw herself between the man and her family. "Eliza, it's all right." Nate's voice was calm. "He just wants to talk. The last time he just wanted to talk, he threatened my children." "I know." Jack's voice was tired. "And I'm sorry for that, ma'am, truly. But things have changed." He pulled out the photograph again. The 3 children Eliza remembered from before. "I got them back, my niece and nephew, little Daniel. I rode to San Antonio last month, talked to the sisters at the orphanage. They're good people, the sisters. They kept the kids safe, educated them, cared for them, but they're not family." His voice roughened. "I brought them home, got a small place near Austin. Nothing fancy, but it's ours. And for the first time in 4 years, I'm not carrying around this rage all the time. I'm carrying hope instead." "I'm glad." Nate's voice was genuine. "Truly, Jack. Those children deserve a home, deserve family." "They do." Jack looked at him directly. "And I realized something while I was with them. Realized that my brother would hate what I've been doing. Hate that I've spent 4 years hunting you instead of taking care of his kids. Hate that I've been so focused on revenge that I forgot what actually matters." He paused. "Daniel was desperate that day. Desperate and scared and out of options. And you did what you thought was right. I can't change that. Can't bring him back. But I can make sure his children don't grow up consumed by the same anger that's been consuming me." "So what are you saying?" Nate's hand stayed near his gun, cautious despite the conciliatory words. "I'm saying I'm done hunting you, deputy. Cross. Nate." Jack corrected himself. "I'm saying Daniel's kids asked about their pa, asked how he died, and I told them the truth. Told them he was trying to help them and made a bad choice. Told them a lawman was trying to do his job and it went wrong. Told them it was a tragedy, not a murder." Tears tracked down his weathered face. "And my niece, Mary, she's 10 now. She asked if I hated the man who shot her daddy. And I said yes. And she asked if hating him made me feel better. And I had to say no." He looked at Nate. "So I'm done hating you, done blaming you, done trying to make you pay for something that was just bad luck and bad timing in a world that's harder than any of us want it to be." Nate's throat worked. "I'm sorry, Jack. For Daniel. For his kids. For all of it. I'd take it back if I could." "I know you would." Jack gathered his reins. "And maybe that's enough. Maybe knowing you carry that weight, that you've been trying to make it right, maybe that's all the justice there is." He started to turn his horse, then stopped. "I heard you're getting married." Starting a family. Yes. Nate glanced at Eliza. Good. Jack's smile was sad but genuine. Good. Make it count, deputy. Make it mean something. That's all any of us can do. He rode away, not fast, not fleeing, just leaving. And with him went 4 years of Nate's guilt, 4 years of looking over his shoulder, 4 years of running. When he was out of sight, Nate sank to his knees in the snow. Not from weakness, from relief, from release, from the sudden absence of a weight he'd carried so long, he'd forgotten what it felt like to be free of it. Eliza went to him, wrapped her arms around him, held him while he shook with silent sobs. It's over, she whispered. Nate, it's over. You're free. I don't deserve to be. Yes, you do. Benjamin's voice was fierce. The boy stood beside them, one hand on Nate's shoulder. You've been making it right ever since it went wrong. You saved us, saved Mama, made us a family again. If that's not making it mean something, I don't know what is. Nate looked up at the 12-year-old who'd become his son in all but name. Thank you, son, for believing that. Always, Benjamin said simply. That's what family does. The wedding took place 2 days later on December 23rd in the small church in Bitter Creek. The whole town came. Not because they cared about Eliza. Many of them still remembered her begging in the street and felt only awkward shame. But they came because the wedding was defiance, a declaration that Victor Blackwood wouldn't win, that community mattered more than money, that love could survive even in the hardest seasons. Ruth had worked a miracle with the dress, creating something beautiful from scraps and remnants. Clara and Grace wore matching outfits, both crying happy tears before the ceremony even started. Benjamin stood beside Nate, proud in his father's old suit that finally fit. Marshall Stone gave Eliza away, standing in for the father she'd lost years ago. And Reverend Walsh kept the ceremony short and sweet, talking about second chances and finding light in darkness and how the hardest winters make spring feel like resurrection. When Nate slipped a simple silver ring on her finger, his mother's ring, the one he'd carried for 4 years waiting for this moment, Eliza felt something inside her heal. Not completely. The scar from losing Samuel would always be there. But scar tissue was tough. It could carry new weight. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Reverend Walsh smiled. Nate, you may kiss your bride. And he did, thoroughly, to cheers and applause and Grace's delighted shriek of finally. The celebration afterward was modest but joyful. Edward provided food. The community provided music. Someone produced a fiddle, someone else a guitar, and suddenly there was dancing in the church hall. Eliza danced with Nate under strings of paper decorations, both of them laughing, both of them aware this happiness was fragile but choosing to embrace it anyway. Happy? He asked. Terrified and happy. She admitted. Is that normal? I think that's marriage. He spun her gently. But Eliza, I promise you this. Whatever comes, whatever Blackwood tries, whatever challenges we face them together. No more running, no more hiding. Just us. Just family. Just family, she repeated. And the words felt like a vow, more binding than any ceremony. But even in the midst of joy, reality waited. Victor Blackwood didn't attend the wedding, but his absence felt like a threat, a reminder that this wasn't over, that the fight for the ranch, for their future, was still ahead. 2 days after Christmas, the final confrontation came. Marshall Stone rode to the ranch at dawn, his face grim. Blackwood's made his move, filed an emergency petition with the territorial court, claims you defaulted on your mortgage, that the ranch is now bank property, and he's got a court order for immediate eviction. That's a lie, Eliza's voice was sharp. I've made every payment, have receipts for all of them. He knows that, but his lawyer's claiming the receipts are fraudulent, that you forged payment records. And the judge, Judge Crenshaw, he's in Blackwood's pocket, signed the eviction order without even a hearing. That's not legal. Nate's voice was cold. It's not. Stone agreed, but it's got the force of law until we can appeal, which means Blackwood's men will be here by noon to enforce it. They'll remove you from the property, seize all assets, and auction everything to settle debts. Over my dead body. Eliza's hands shook with rage. That might be exactly what he's hoping for. Stone's expression was troubled. Eliza, Nate, I can't officially advise you to resist a court order, but unofficially, I'm telling you that Judge Crenshaw's ruling won't stand. It's corrupt, it's illegal, and the territorial marshal is already investigating. But the investigation takes time. And Blackwood's counting on using that time to take your land and make the theft permanent. So what do? Nate asked. We make it impossible for him to enforce the order quietly. Edward Chen appeared behind the marshal, Ruth beside him. We make this public, loud. We make sure when Blackwood's men try to evict Eliza, the whole territory sees what kind of man he is. How? Eliza felt hope kindle. We invite witnesses. Ruth's smile was fierce. Every rancher in the valley, every family he's threatened, every person who's afraid they might be next. We bring them all here. Make Blackwood evict you in front of 50 people. Let him show his true face. And I'll document everything. Stone pulled out his notebook. Official report. Date, time, witnesses, actions taken, words said, everything. Then I'll ride to Cheyenne myself. Put it directly in the territorial marshal's hands. Force an investigation they can't ignore. That could take weeks, Nate protested. Blackwood will have already sold the property by then. Not if we stop him. A new voice joined them. Everyone turned. William Rodriguez stood there, hat in hand, 24 other ranchers behind him. We've been talking. William's English was accented but clear. All of us. We know what Blackwood's doing. Know he'll come for us next if he gets away with this. So we're not letting him get away with it. What are you suggesting? Eliza asked. We're suggesting that when Blackwood's men show up with their court order, they find 60 people standing between them and this ranch. We're suggesting they have to go through all of us to evict you. We're suggesting we make this cost him more than it's worth. He could bring the law down on all of you, Nate warned, could charge you with obstruction, interfering with a court order. You could lose everything. We could lose everything anyway. Tom Miller stepped forward. Blackwood's already burned Peterson's barn, threatened half the valley. If we don't stand together now, we'll fall separately later. Better to fight as a community than die as individuals. Eliza looked at these people, her neighbors, her friends, people she'd helped over the years, and people who'd helped her, all willing to risk everything to keep one widow from losing her home. I don't know what to say. Say you'll fight. Ruth gripped her hand. Say you'll stand. Say you'll show Victor Blackwood that some things can't be bought or stolen or intimidated away. Eliza looked at Nate. He nodded. We'll fight, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. We'll stand, all of us together. They came at noon, just as Stone predicted. 8 men led by Lucas Grant carrying official papers and weapons. Behind them, a wagon to remove seized property. Behind that, Victor Blackwood himself, dressed in his expensive suit, looking every inch the civilized man of business. But they found the ranch defended. 60 people stood in a line across the property entrance. Men, women, even some children. All armed, all determined, all ready to bomb before they let corruption win. Blackwood's men pulled up short, clearly not expecting this. This is illegal, Lucas called out. This is a lawful eviction. You're all interfering with a court order. Show me the order. Marshal Stone stepped forward. Lucas handed over the papers. Stone read them carefully, then looked up. This order is fraudulent. Judge Crenshaw had no jurisdiction to issue an emergency eviction without a hearing, had no evidence to support claims of default, and most importantly, he pulled out his own documents. I have proof right here that Mrs. Cross has made every mortgage payment on time and in full. Mrs. Cross? Blackwood's voice was sharp. She's Mrs. Hartwell. Was Mrs. Hartwell. Nate stepped beside Eliza, took her hand. She's Mrs. Cross now, my wife, which means any claim against her property goes through me first. Blackwood's expression darkened. That changes nothing. The order stands. Does it? Stone's voice carried across the assembled crowd. Because I'm looking at this order, and I'm seeing judicial corruption. I'm seeing a banker trying to steal land through fraudulent legal action. And I'm seeing 60 witnesses who will testify to exactly that when this goes to the territorial court. You're bluffing. Am I? Stone gestured to the crowd. Test me. Try to enforce this order, but know that every person here will remember, will testify, will make sure your corruption gets exposed." Blackwood stared at the assembled crowd, calculating. His men were armed, yes, but so were the ranchers. And even if he won the fight, he'd lose the war. Too many witnesses, too much evidence, too much visibility. Finally, he pulled a thick envelope from his coat. $5,000. He threw it at Eliza's feet. "Cash. Final offer. Take it and leave. Refuse, and I'll bury you in legal fees and court battles until you don't have a dollar left." Eliza looked at the envelope. More money than she'd seen in her entire life. Enough to relocate, to start over, to give her children actual opportunities. Then she looked at the ranch, at the cabin Samuel built, at the land they'd worked, at the community that had rallied to defend it. She picked up the envelope. For a moment, Blackwood smiled, thinking he'd won. Then Eliza threw it back at him. "My land is not for sale, Mr. Blackwood. Not at any price. This is my home, my children's inheritance, and you can't have it." Rage twisted Blackwood's features. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," Eliza's voice didn't waver, "but I'll regret it on my own land, as a free woman, not as someone who sold out to corruption and greed." "Well said, ma'am." Marshal Stone stepped forward. "Now, Mr. Blackwood, I'm going to ask you and your men to leave, and I'm going to advise you that the territorial marshal will be investigating this fraudulent eviction order. If you value your freedom, I suggest you get yourself a good lawyer. You have no authority." "Actually, I do." Stone pulled out a second document. "Special deputy authority granted by the territorial marshal's office specifically to investigate land fraud in this region. And Mr. Blackwood, you just committed fraud in front of 60 witnesses. So you can leave now or I can arrest you. Your choice." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Blackwood turned his horse. "This isn't over." "Yes." Nate's voice was quiet but carried across the space. "It is. You just don't know it yet." They rode away, Lucas and his men following, Blackwood's fury palpable even from a distance. When they were gone, the assembled crowd erupted in cheers. Eliza collapsed against Nate, her legs finally giving out from tension and adrenaline and relief. "It's over," she whispered. "It's really over." "It's over," he confirmed, holding her tight. "We won. The Valley won. Blackwood's done." And he was. Within a week, the territorial marshal arrived to arrest Victor Blackwood for fraud, corruption, and attempted theft. The investigation revealed dozens of similar schemes across the territory. Property stolen, widows cheated, legal documents forged. Blackwood spent the rest of his life in prison, his empire dismantled, his ill-gotten gains distributed back to his victims. Spring came to Bitter Creek, Wyoming, bringing wildflowers and warm wind and the sound of children laughing. Eliza stood on the porch of the ranch house, expanded now with a second story and a proper kitchen, and watched her family work. Benjamin, 22 now and deputy marshal for the territory, was teaching his younger brother Samuel to handle a horse. The boy was 7, with his father's eyes and his adopted father's patient hands, completely fearless as he mounted the young mare. Clara, 19 and engaged to the banker's son, a good man, nothing like Blackwood, was keeping the ranch books with the same meticulous attention she'd shown since childhood. She'd become the finest accountant in 3 territories, bringing modern business practices back to ranching families across Wyoming. Grace, 14, was in the training corral with Willow's granddaughter, teaching the horse to jump. She'd become the best horse trainer in the region, with clients coming from as far as Denver to work with her. And the twins, Emma and Sarah, 5 years old, were helping Nate repair the fence, which mostly meant getting in his way and making him laugh. Nate Cross, no longer running, no longer haunted, looked up and caught Eliza watching. His face creased in the smile she'd woken up to every morning for 10 years, and her heart still skipped. "See something you like, Mrs. Cross?" he called. "Just my whole world." She called back. He set down his tools and walked to her, pulled her into his arms in full view of the children, who groaned and made exaggerated gagging sounds. "Still happy?" he asked like he did every day. "Still terrified and happy?" She answered like she always did. "Still choosing you every day." "Good." He kissed her forehead. Because I'm never letting you go. From the road, Ruth and Edward's wagon approached, bringing Sunday dinner fixings. Behind them, Tom Miller and his family. Behind them, William Rodriguez and his clan. The whole valley coming together the way they did every week, sharing food and stories and the simple joy of survival. Eliza thought about that day in the snow, kneeling in the street with her children, certain they were going to do. Thought about the stranger who'd appeared like an answer to prayers and changed everything. Thought about grace, undeserved, unexpected, precious, and how it could arrive in the shape of a broken man looking for redemption and find it by saving a broken family. Thank you, she whispered against Nate's chest, for stopping, for staying, for choosing us. Thank you, he whispered back, for letting me, for seeing who I could be instead of who I was, for making me believe in second chances. They stood there holding each other while their children played and friends arrived and dinner prepared, and the ranch, their ranch, fought for and defended and earned, thrived under the spring sun. And if you listen carefully, underneath all the noise and joy and chaos of family, you could hear an echo of those first words that changed everything. Get up, ma'am, you're done begging. She had gotten up, they all had, and they'd built something beautiful from desperation and hope and stubborn refusal to quit. They'd built home. They'd built family. They'd built a life worth living. And that was more than enough. That was everything.